so I got a repeat customer. Got a John Deere here. Previously I worked on it. The mower deck, the bolts that hold the spindle on had vibrated so much it made the holes that held the bolts in place bigger, so it started falling through. So I installed some washers, got a new belt, it was up and running. They love it. But I told them there were some carburetor issues, so they wanted to take it back home, put some carb cleaner in it, see if that fixed it. Well, it didn't fix it, so I went back over there to pick it up. They asked me to come get it, replace the carburetor. I said, maybe I can clean it. No, we want it replaced. Get it done and over with. And then when the lady went inside, this is her mower, he says, just make it good. Do whatever you want to it, just make it run well. Kind of a gift for her, I would think. So I'm just going to do an entire, what I'm calling a tune-up. New carburetor, new ignition coil, a valve adjustment, and then we'll do the oil changes and the filter changes. So a lot of little things to do, but and easy stuff, but there's still a lot. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start removing the shroud. And then there's bolts back here in the back, but I think I'm going to have to move the fuel pump first. Since we're taking the carburetor off, I'm going to take the gas line off the carburetor. So this is why when he said let's go ahead and just do it right, I call it a tune-up. Back in the olden days, you did a tune-up, you replaced the spark plug wires, the spark plugs, you did that kind of stuff. So when you get to a mechanic and they say a tune-up and they do an oil change and filters, I don't think that's a tune-up. So you can see here that this is starting to split. Probably rubbed up against that muffler or something. So we got a better one that has a metal sleeve over it. So we'll get this off, get the ignition coil, because the spark plug wire goes into the ignition coil. We'll get that set at 30 thousandths, and then we'll remove the overhead valve cover so we can adjust the valves. Okay, it's likely we're going to spill oil out of here, so I put some rags underneath it. And we want to be careful that we don't bend it, but it is kind of jammed on there, so that tells me that they used Permatex sealant for the gasket. Yep, so we'll have to use Permatex as well, because I didn't order a gasket, so we'll have to clean that off, and we'll have to let it sit 24 hours before we can do anything to it, start the engine or anything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the engine until one of them is all the way seated in and the other one's all the way out, the valves. So we should be able to see now that the bottom one is moving in, and that means this one should be loose. So now we're going to measure it with the feeler gauge. Okay, so what we're going to do is we got a 4 thousandths feeler gauge here and a 7 thousandths feeler gauge here. The 4 thousandths needs to be able to go in and the 7 thousandths needs to stay out. So we'll put the 4 in and the 7 should stay out. And look at that. That's nice. And then we'll turn it to do it again to the bottom. This should be loose. It is. So someone's done maintenance on this before. Okay, 4 goes in. So does 7. So the bottom one needs to be adjusted a little bit. Not much though. We're going to loosen the torque screw, I think. Might be the torque screw. Okay, so we loosen the torque screw. That is the locking screw. That's what locks everything together. And then the nut here gets turned. That will tighten the valve. So the locking screw, you screw out, you turn the nut in to tighten the valve. So now I've over tightened it. The 4 thousandths does not go in. Well, it barely goes in. So we'll loosen it just a bit. And 7 does not go in now. I still, there we go. That's perfect. So I'm going to try to hold it with my fingers, hold the nut, and then we're going to tighten the torque screw. And then we're going to check it again, make sure nothing moved on us while we were doing it. So there's 4 and 7. 7 doesn't go in. So now I have to clean this and this. Okay, so now I'm going to take off the ignition coil and replace it with a new one. There's the shut-off wire. This is what will shut off the electricity to the spark plug. Okay, so we're going to find the magnet right there. We're going to put this 10 thousandths. So we got our feeler gauge here. And we're going to put this under our feeler, or under our, we're going to put the feeler gauge in between the flywheel and the ignition coil. That'll hold us at 10 thousandths. You can use a business card, so they say. So I'm going to hand tighten it down. And then we'll take our feeler gauge out. I need to reinstall this wire. Don't want to forget about the wire. Now we'll take out the spark plug. Okay, this time we're going to gap it 30 thousandths to 35 thousandths. So that means 30 thousandths needs to go in. And it does. It doesn't. It's too tight. Start it out a little bit off camera. Okay, so 30 goes in. Not very good. There, 30 went in right there. Okay, 30 and 35 should not go in, and it doesn't. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test to make sure that we have spark. Okay, I saw a spark there. Okay, so we'll put the spark plug back in. Now everything's working correctly. You see that metal sleeve? That'll rest up against that muffler, or tailpipe, whatever you want to call it, better, so it doesn't burn it. Okay, so Carolyn did me a favor and cleaned this edge up here, got all that Permatex off. I cleaned that edge. So now we'll get the oil off of it by putting some carb cleaner on it, brake cleaner. Okay, so I'm going to use some Permatex Ultra Black sealer. And we're just going to put it right around the edge, put it around the screw holes. Now we're going to set it on there very carefully. Okay, so we're going to tighten these in a star pattern, so back and forth, until the silicone starts to squeeze out. And then we're going to let it dry for 2 hours. And then we're going to come back and tighten it all the way down after it dries for the 2 hours. So you see it squeezing out. Okay, so I'm going to take off the carburetor and the inlet tube. Whole thing drops down. And then the first thing you want to do is take a picture of your linkages. Make sure you understand how that hooks up. That way you can always go back to it and look. And in this case, this is important because the hook goes up, not down. I got caught up on that the last time I worked on a carburetor on a John Deere. So we're going to take off the linkage. Try to figure out which one comes. And it's a combination. You got to really figure out the combination of how to do it. Okay, so that one had to come off first, the back one, and then the second one will come off. We'll have to take this wire off at the bottom. And then there's that spring wire that we have to get off. And there it is. Okay, so there's the new carburetor. So we're going to take a little look-see to make sure they kind of look the same. Yeah, they look exactly the same. I don't see any difference in them at all. Okay, so we'll put this back on. Okay, so now we get to put our linkages back in. Plug our wire back in for the solenoid. Fuel shut off solenoid. Okay, so I drained the oil off camera. Didn't think you'd want to see that exciting process. So all we're going to do is take the oil filter off now. Okay, so I got some oil on my finger, clean fresh oil. Put it on there, on the ring. And then we're going to screw the oil filter on. And everybody has a different opinion how tight you're supposed to get this. I just kind of feel it. I do about a half to 3/4 of a turn. So we're going to take the fuel filter off. Alright, so I got the shroud on, so now I'm going to put the air filter on. Okay, so that's all I can do for right now. So in a couple, I guess about an hour, I have to tighten the bolts on the overhead valve. And then I have to wait 24 hours and then we can turn it over and give it a try. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to video. I think I was working on this mower deck. So if I can inspire you, try something new when you're living your dreams. Thanks for watching.